On tonight's show, music for movies and Mozza on Marc, the 20th century boy 20 years on. Next month sees the 50th anniversary of Marc Bolan's birth and the 20th anniversary of the car crash that killed him. Bolan was the main man, the London boy whose influence can be heard on scores of northern groups, from the Smiths to Manson to Oasis. The last note he ever played was in here, where he was making a 6-part series for Granada called Marc. By then he was probably past his peak, but with Todd Haynes' film, Velvet Goldmine, threatening a return to the days of satin and tat, the godfather of glam could be ready for a comeback. There are those, though, who think he's never been away.
I was dancing when I was 12. I was dancing when I was 12.
I thought he was the most beautiful creature alive. I fell in love with him.
I was dancing when I was out.
When you fall in love with somebody, it leads you, and you don't know why it's happened. So it's happened. And I think that was the way with Marc Bolan.
Myself right out the womb.
I think he touched deep into the hearts of a lot of people, and I think that he did have that power to reach into both men and women's souls.
Marc Bolan was born for stardom. The late 60s saw him searching for it as a hippie in the acoustic duo Tyrannosaurus Rex.
He was a genuine star, someone who was completely charismatic. I mean, if he worked in a department store, people would be drawn to him, even if he worked behind a counter.
Under Visconti, Bolan replaced Steve Tuck with Mickey Finn, shortened the band's name and went electric. The effect was immediate.
Here is the only group to have 2 number ones last year. You saw them singing on Christmas Day, and here's the other one, T.Rex and Get It On. I saw Marc Bolan and Mickey Finn perform the song on Top of the Pops, and it completely changed my life. It was the most glamorous and sexy and alien thing I'd ever come across, and I can still feel that moment resonating today.
You do sweet black, don't look back, and I love you. You're dirty and sweet, oh yeah. You're slim and you're weak, you got the teeth of the Hydra upon you. You're my girl. Get it on, bang a gong, get it on.
Get It On was one of a string of number ones as Britain was in the grip of T.Rextasy.
Before I knew it was just on a merry-go-round, and the whole thing took off beyond my wildest dreams. It was surreal, to be honest with you. You're in a car and there's millions of faces squashed against the car, thousands, and they're all sitting on the roof and they're going mad. And there's nothing real about it.
The thing at the time was they were the first sign of hysteria since the Beatles. And I saw them in '72, and it seemed to be true because you couldn't hear the music. I saw them in Bellevue, in Manchester, and it was just a complete mess, a very exciting mess. But you couldn't actually hear the music because people just kept screaming.
Well, you appear like a car, you got a hubcap, diamond star halo. You appear like a car, oh yeah.
At the peak of Marc's career, when we were making singles like Get It On and Telegram Sam, you could not open a newspaper without seeing a photo of Marc Bolan or an article about Marc Bolan. And unlike the Beatles, Marc did these interviews single-handed. It was just Marc Bolan, not John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And he carried it off. I mean, he had a real gift of gab, and he was extremely popular. And at his peak, for instance, with Hot Love, or Get It On, we were selling on the average of about 28,000 singles a day. Nowadays, you're lucky if you sell 28,000 a week, if it's a hit single. 28,000 singles a day, which was unprecedented. The sales figures were through the roof, outselling the Beatles in Britain. And somewhere on record, Paul McCartney or Ringo said that We own up, you know, T.Rex are bigger than the Beatles ever were.
1, 2, 3, 4.
By now it was clear Bolan wasn't just the biggest star in Britain, he'd actually created a new musical genre.
Until the days of glam rock, which Marc is credited with inventing, or David Bowie, depending on which history book you read first, people wore jeans, kind of lumberjack shirts. There was no glamour in rock and roll since the days of Little Richard. Marc was the first person to put on a sequin jacket, went on stage with this look, and I think single-handedly created glam rock.
There's a lot of stuff these days, people playing with their gender images, and that's usually attributed to David Bowie, whereas in fact it was Marc Bolan who started the whole thing up, you know, and then it was like David Bowie leapt on his bandwagon, really.
He definitely had